The Louisville defense is legit. One of the best pass rushers in the country is going to try to put Miami's Carson Beck under duress.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this loaded episode, we're going to talk keys for Miami against Louisville and some players on the Miami side who need to step up. We'll be joined later on by my paisan, Phil Russomanno. We'll talk about the toughest games remaining on Miami's schedule, with this certainly being one of them. Might be the toughest game left this Friday night against the Louisville Cardinals, despite Louisville coming off a loss. Still a very dangerous team. We'll talk about how Miami players and coaches are staying focused and avoiding the rat poison or the ear pollution that Mario Cristobal talked about. But let's talk about Louisville's defense. I've been meaning to do this week because so much of our focus for the first couple days this week has been on Miami's biggest advantage in this game, which is Hurricanes defense, specifically the defensive line, going up against a Louisville offensive line that has struggled so far this year, and a quarterback in Miller Moss who's been under pressure a lot this year and hasn't played well under pressure, has made a lot of mistakes, has thrown 3 pick sixes already this season. But on the flip side, Miami's offense, and I think they can be up to the challenge here, is going to go up against one of the best defenses in the ACC and one of the more successful defenses in the country. Carson Beck spoke on the challenges this week, saying, quote, "This is one of the best defenses, if not the best, that we play, based off of what they do and the players they have. They challenge you, try to stop the run, but also have those guys in the back end that are able to cover. It's going to be a challenge, but something we are looking forward to." So that Louisville defense so far this year, they've been especially successful against the pass. Now, they haven't faced Malachi Toney yet, haven't faced Carson Beck and CJ Daniels yet, but they're allowing opponents to throw for only an average of 150 yards per game this year, and they've only given up 5 touchdowns while creating 6 interceptions, and on the ground, they give up just 3.3 yards per carry. Now, I think Miami's offensive line, Mark Fletcher, Marty Brown, and what sounds like a completely healthy now Jordan Lyle, I think the Hurricanes could do a little bit better than 3.3 yards per carry, but it's been a really successful defense. And on specifically throwing the football, Carson Beck said this: they are primarily a one-high team, which is a lot more difficult to hit those big post balls, the deep shots with. Teams that like to play, teams who play over the top in almost like an umbrella, Carson said about them. Pitt was able to hit some deep shots against them, which were really good balls and really good routes by wide receivers that made plays, which is what you have to do against a defense like that. Carson Beck talked a little bit more about Miami's offense and what they've been focusing on. The consistency of the range of what our offense is able to do to execute and win games has been most impressive, he said. What can we continue to do or do better is continue to stay consistent. Don't get bored with what we do. Execute what we do. A lot of coaches and teams go wrong when they try to find new things, stuff you're not essentially good at, but you think magically what you do isn't going to work anymore. There are wrinkles we throw in because we have the capacity to do that. So the message there at the end was, don't expect in the second half of the season Miami to dramatically change their approach on offense, that they're focusing on what they do well, sharpening it, but also adding those wrinkles in to make sure they don't get predictable, because that's important. I mean, one of the reasons why the back 9 of the season can be really tough is the teams have more and more film on you, and they start to see more and more of your tendencies. So, yeah, Miami needs to focus on doing what they do well, even better than they already do it, but you also need to make sure you're not getting predictable down the stretch. And I'm not really worried about that with a Shannon Dawson offense. I trust the way that this offense is coached. Certainly, we'll talk about Miami's defense a little bit later. I trust Miami defensively a lot more than I did last season. I think that's fair to say. But, okay, I mentioned at the top, one of the most dangerous pass rushers. Of course, Miami has a couple of them, but Louisville in Clev Lubin, if Miami isn't on point in blocking him, in keeping him consistently bottled up, he can make Carson Beck's night really difficult on Friday. Lubin already has 4 sacks this season and a forced fumble on the year. And overall, Louisville's defensive line has been very productive, one of the better, maybe the best on Miami's schedule. Now, for the Hurricanes side of it, and we'll see if that continues this Friday night, Miami's offensive line has been one of the most successful in the country when it comes to protecting Carson Beck. They've given up pressures on only 15% of Carson's dropbacks. So he has seen one of the cleanest pockets in college football. He's only been sacked 6 times to this point, and Miami's had a tougher schedule than most of the other teams out there in America. Louisville, for example, who hasn't played as tough of a schedule as Miami, has given up 13 sacks already. Carson Beck has been sacked less than half of that so far. So this defense is going to be a challenge. Now, if I stack up Louisville's defense versus Miami's offense, and then I stack up Miami's defense versus Louisville's offense, I think the Hurricanes have the greater advantage because Louisville's offensive line has been problematic. But I will say that even for Louisville's offense, if Miller Moss does have time to throw, it's very accurate, very dangerous. If Chris Bell is able to get open, their star wide receiver who's big, he's 6'2", 215, 220. Chris Bell can make you pay if he is, left open and if his quarterback has time to throw. And their running backs, if their offensive line can get any push, Isaac Brown and Duke Watson are really dangerous offensive players. I still think Miami's defense has a bigger advantage than whatever advantage Louisville's defense might have, because I think Miami's offense is going to really, really challenge them. But perhaps the biggest challenge moving forward is going to be avoiding the ear pollution that Mario Cristobal talks about, not letting everybody in the country who's saying Miami's either the best team or the second best team in the country, blocking out that noise. It's something we've talked about a lot this week. Mario Cristobal talked about it on Monday. Some of his players talked about it. Here's Carson Beck on how he deals with the media praise. I've been on championship teams, top teams that are top 5 and number 1 in the country. It means literally nothing, Beck said. Right now, what I get across to these guys, these same people telling you that you're the best and good were saying that we were going to go 8-4 and suck before the season. So you're going to listen to them now that they're saying you're good, even though they were saying you suck before week 1, before the Notre Dame game. That's the thing that doesn't really faze me. Just keep playing ball, he said. You have to keep doing what got you here. A lot of teams this time of year start to tank. They get tired. It is what it is, he said. The season is long. You play a tough physical style of ball, and it can be difficult to continue and not get complacent. That's the message around this team, what we're going to continue to do, he said. And, I appreciate Beck's work ethic because I know Miami's already had 2 bye weeks, and Carson has always said bye weeks are work weeks. And he's taken extra time to really hone in on his footwork and on his release, on his mechanics. And, of course, Miami has had some extra time to look at the Louisville Cardinals. They had extra time to look at Florida State before that game. So they're taking the bye week seriously. Mark Fletcher also talked about keeping the complacency and the rat poison out. And you guys know, my favorite human being on that team is Mark Fletcher. This guy, he's a model person and a model football player. And Fletcher admitted that they allowed some complacency last year, and they learned from that experience. He said, quote, complacency creeps in, can be one little thing. Doesn't have to be something drastic, Fletcher said. When you let that hang around, it turns into a big thing. We just have to kill that. We feel that was a problem last year. We got too complacent. We're feeling ourselves. People listening to rat poison, he said. We have to not listen to anything good or bad. Have to keep our head down, work hard every day. What we do on Green Tree is what really matters. Mark Fletcher said. So these guys know, they internalize it, and they understand that, hey, maybe last year with the Cam Ward show, Miami had the 9-0 start. Everyone had Miami in the playoffs last year. Spoiler alert, they didn't make the playoffs last year. Mark Fletcher is saying they let a little bit of that creep in last year. They're not letting it in this year. All right, when we come back, a couple of interesting recruiting notes heading into this game. One of Miami's top flip targets is going to be at the game on Friday. It's a Friday, so you've got to try to find players that don't have high school games, which is most around the country, but one of the highest profile visitors will be in attendance for the Louisville game. We'll talk about the toughest remaining games on Miami's schedule. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Oh, folks, we're also proudly brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. Guys, the swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We take you around all the big football and soon basketball storylines in the Atlantic Coast Conference. We've, of course, talked a lot of Miami, with Miami looking like, we'll see how the next 7 games play out, but Miami looking like the best team in the ACC to this point. Louisville is going to try to put Miami to the test this week. And I think it's worth noting that despite the fact that Louisville comes off, an overtime loss to Virginia the last time they played, they also come off a bye week. I know their stock is a little bit down, but again, this Louisville team has the talent. One of the better on paper running back duos in the country with Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. They've been banged up, playing through injury. They haven't had a lot of help from their offensive line, but coming off a bye, you expect Brown and Watson to be probably as healthy as they've been since the start of the season. Really talented receivers. Lacey, who's a great punt returner. Miami needs to be sharp on their special teams coverage. We mentioned Chris Bell, who's their top receiver. And Miller Moss, their quarterback, he's just been a roller coaster. He can hurt you. He can also hurt his own team with some of the picks and pick sixes that he's thrown. And Clev Lubin, as we mentioned, one of the more dangerous pass rushers in the country. So Louisville has the talent. I mean, I know on the Miami side, we've nitpicked, we're 5-0, we're ranked number 2, but we haven't played a perfect game yet, right? We haven't played the complete, maybe USF might have been the most complete game, but we haven't really played a full fourth quarter dominating game. On the Louisville side, they've been really Jekyll and Hyde. I think that team is capable of more than they've produced on the field. And so, Miami needs to have that mentality, that 1-0 mentality, go out there, dominate every single rep, dominate every single opponent, 11 guys on the field. Let's all win our individual battles. There is no room for complacency. And listen, in a big primetime game like this one, I don't think complacency is going to creep in this week. So this is definitely a candidate for toughest game left on Miami's schedule. The following week, you have Stanford. Now, Stanford at home, that's on paper should be the easiest game left. Stanford just does not have the talent to line up against Miami. As long as Miami is, not complacent. Complacent is the word of the day. And as long as Miami takes care of the football and just takes care of business, Stanford should not be a difficult game at home. SMU on the road might be. Now, first few weeks when they were non-conference, I was very critical of SMU. They seem to be finding their form. Kevin Jennings has been playing real well. Our old friend Chris Johnson has been playing well over there in recent weeks. So SMU looks like they're trending up a little bit. So that's going to be a tough game. Miami's got to go on the road in Dallas for that one November 1st. That's another candidate for toughest game left on the schedule. Home against Syracuse following week. Syracuse has been a mess since their starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, got injured. He's out for the season. They've just been a completely different team. That one does not look tough on paper. And, I think Miami's going to be focused against Syracuse because we all remember what happened in the Dome last year. So better go out there and dominate that game. NC State at home. NC State, their offense is really good. Their quarterback, South Florida's own CJ Bailey, has been playing really well this year. Tight end Justin Jolie, one of the best at his position in the country. Running back Hollywood Smothers is really good. I think Miami is going to smother Smothers, though. But NC State's defense has been bad. Like, Miami should be able to light them up. That's, probably middle of the road when it comes to difficult games. But, like CJ Bailey might ball out in front of all his family and friends in South Florida. We'll see. But I don't think that's the most difficult game remaining. Then the final two on the road at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's been really bad. They're not quite as bad as Stanford, and Miami's got to go to Blacksburg for that one. But they already fired their coach this year. Maybe not that tough. I'll tell you what could be the toughest game left, though. Final game of the regular season, road game at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been playing really, really well, especially since they made their quarterback change. I mean, my audience probably watched them beat FSU last weekend, so you're aware. They've got true freshman quarterback Mason Heinschel now starting. He threw a couple picks, but he always responds really well. That was only his second career start. Pitt's defense is always really good. So that Pittsburgh game, like, low-key, like there's a chance, because you got to go on the road there, probably cold weather, Thanksgiving weekend. That might be the toughest game remaining on Miami's schedule. Like, Pitt is no joke this year, especially after making the QB change. They just beat Florida State. They should have beaten Louisville before that, but Louisville was able to come back from a big deficit. That was right before they benched Heinschel. So I don't know, man. You guys tell me. The Pitt game might be low-key the toughest game left on the schedule. But let's go back to this game Friday night. I was very happy to see this reported by Canesport.com. Stephen Wagner, who covers recruiting for them for On3 Sports. Even though the visitor list probably not going to be very big this week, 'cause Friday night, high school games are going on, but Miami's going to get a visit from Texas committed 4-star running back Derek Cooper. That is a player we would love to flip. Chaminade Madonna standout. And this will be, what would this be? Like Cooper's probably at least third game day visit to Miami. I know it's easy for him to come to games at Miami, given he plays, just up the road. But it's significant. And he said, like, he wants to see Miami's running backs continue to find success. He's very high on what Mark Fletcher is doing. How can you not be? He's very high on the balance of Miami's offense. He's committed to Texas, and Texas has had their struggles this year, but they come off a nice win against Oklahoma. And also, you notice, like, does Texas have any running backs left? And Jarrett Gibson just announced he's transferring from there. They've had a bunch of injuries. So, like, Miami's got a deep running back room. So Derek Cooper might be thinking, like, hey, not only is Texas paying me a lot of NIL money, allegedly, but I can go there and probably start right away, where Miami's got a really deep running back room. But he grew up a Miami fan, from what we understand. He's a local kid. And Derek Cooper's a hell of a player. Like, we would love to pull off the flip and keep him home if we can. So Derek Cooper visiting this weekend is significant, and shout out to Canesport for bringing that to my attention. I also saw that my guy, he's already committed, of course, and he's been injured this year, is why he's able to come on a Friday. But offensive lineman J.J. Sparks, friend of the show, who we had on the show several months ago. J.J. Sparks from up in Jacksonville is going to be coming down and visiting for this game. So hopefully we can run into J.J. Down there at Hard Rock Stadium and catch up with him. So J.J. Sparks, great dude. And maybe J.J., if you get a little FaceTime with Derek Cooper, let him know where home is, all right? Let him know the U is the place to be. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk with our paisan Phil Russomanno. Going to zoom in on this Louisville game, talk keys to the game, and Hurricane players who need to step up. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use a new bedding set. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready. From Christmas trees to wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables, it's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection, every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. I mean, guys, we're going to have to redo our decor for Thanksgiving. We're going to be hosting Thanksgiving this year. I love how easy it is on Wayfair to find pieces that fit our style and budget. Everything is in one place, and checkout is always a breeze. The delivery is fast and free, which is a lifesaver during this busy time of year. So get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score huge perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's bring on my paisan, triple Cane. Phil Russomanno is with us. I know he's excited for a little Friday night football action this week. Phil, you look at Miami as 13.5-point favorites against a really talented Louisville team. I mean, if Miami's going to cover that big number or at least win the game, what are your keys for Friday night?
So I would think, like, contrary to like opinion that we've seen, it's really worrying about Louisville's defense. Like, Louisville's defense is one of the top in the country. Their defensive line's actually ranked third behind ours on Pro Football Focus, which is really flying under the radar, I think. So really the point of attack is going to be, as we always mention, our offensive line and defensive line, but we'll focus on the offensive line first. It's going to be really important to block Lubin on their defense. He's right now considered the fourth best edge rusher on PFF and one of the best on their big board for the upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, Clev Lubin is not going to be an easy guy to shut down this week, but you would figure if anybody could do that or at least bottle him up a little bit, you would think Miami's offensive line would be the one to do that.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. That's what we hope.
Yeah, because so far this year, Carson Beck has not had to throw a ton under pressure. He's only been pressured on 15% of his dropbacks, which is either at near or at, the very tip top of the country so far in terms of protection. Because, a lot of people, you'll notice if we look at the stats before this game, Miller Moss on the Louisville side has really struggled under pressure, and he's under pressure a lot, right? But he's been really good when his pocket is clean. So if we shift over to that defense, we figure this could be the type of game going up against a struggling Louisville offensive line. Now, they've had the extra week to scheme. I mean, both teams come off a bye week, so they've had the extra week to scheme against one another. But I would figure, like, you can't really fix your offensive line personnel over an extra week. But I'm sure, Jeff Brom has been focusing on ways to get the football out quickly and try to minimize the impact of Bain and Mesidor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're probably going to run a lot of like chipping concepts too on the offensive line with like the tight ends and running backs. So I know Akeem Mesidor had an interview yesterday with the Mac and Gremlick show, I think it was.
Yep.
And he mentioned a lot that he has to be like prepared for who's going to be able to chip, where he has to go for both sides, him and Bain too, on both edge sides for the ball.
Any other keys you're looking at in this one if Miami's going to come out on top?
I would say on the defensive side, really making sure you're getting pressure on Miller Moss. I know he's been struggling mightily under pressure. I think, like you mentioned, like his Pro Football Focus grade was like a 34 when he was under pressure. So really forcing him into bad mistakes is going to be big. And then on the back end, really covering Chris Bell, who has the real potential to be a first-round pick. It's going to be a lot of heavy lifting for Xavier Lucas or OJ Frederick, depending on who's on him throughout the game.
So on the Louisville Cardinals, some people are saying this is on paper the toughest game remaining on the schedule. Miami has Louisville this weekend, Stanford, which on paper doesn't look particularly tough the following week. Then they're at SMU, home against Syracuse, home against NC State, at Virginia Tech, and at Pittsburgh. And so I would probably argue, I guess you could say three possibilities, because at SMU's starting to play better the last couple of weeks. Pittsburgh has been playing phenomenally well, coming off an upset win against Florida State. So I'm not even sure between Louisville, Pitt, and at SMU, two of those three on the road, which one do you think is the toughest game remaining?
So ironically enough, I do think it's like the 1-0 mentality and every week's your hardest week.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Since we're not on the field, I think it's good to look ahead. But for like this season, I really do think that this game is going to be our hardest one throughout the rest of the season. So it's one of those kinds of situations that if you handle business today, you just got to continue to handle business week in and week out. But this one's our toughest test yet.
Yeah, you could argue, on paper, Miami has already played their toughest games, so those are in the rear view. But as we all know, the ACC schedule can get spooky, and it's not just in Miami's case. You've seen a lot of results in the ACC the past few weeks that we were not expecting. And, once you get 8-9 games into the season, teams have a lot more film on you. You're forced to make adjustments. Teams around the country have injury issues they have to play through. So just because we could say, hey, our toughest games are behind us, doesn't mean we're necessarily going to get through this thing unscathed. Now, going back to Friday night against the Cardinals, when you look at the matchups, Phil, give me some players on the Miami side. You can give me obvious ones if you want to, maybe some not so obvious ones who you think have an opportunity to really step up and thrive this week.
I would say on defense, one that's a little underrated is going to be David Blay. I think having that interior pressure is going to be important. And also, Louisville's running game hasn't been the greatest this year, but at any given moment they could break out. So making sure that middle of the pocket really is collapsing and preventing those running lanes is going to be really paramount for success.
Anybody on the other side of the ball?
So I'm going to go with Carson Beck on the offense. I think it's going to be important for him to slide protections, especially with the way that Louisville's defensive line is really strong. Him being able to identify the play, slide protections, if he's going to audible out to a run or audible out to a play action pass, that's going to be really important to gain those extra yards, because yards have been at a premium against Louisville's defense.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said about their running backs, because even though, Louisville's running game has been just shockingly ineffective, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, including the offensive line not really doing their job this year, and also Isaac Brown and Duke Watson have been banged up throughout the year. I would figure the extra week off for them, they're probably going to be healthier than they've been probably since the opening game or two. But what I've noticed about Brown and Watson, Brown especially, who's really explosive, is you can basically shut them down for the majority of a game, and then it just takes one missed tackle for Isaac Brown to get going. Like when I was watching Louisville about a month back when they beat, it wasn't overall an impressive performance, but they beat James Madison, and Isaac Brown was basically getting completely shut down, wasn't doing anything right up until he breaks a 78-yard touchdown run, where it's like, I think Miami's defense is a lot better than JMU's. I'll throw that out there. But, you can think you have Brown bottled up, but he's a really explosive guy. So, I mean, he can break something off and hurt you when you least expect it.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like that game with James Madison, it looked like it was going to be a James Madison win for the longest time, and then out of nowhere they just turned a switch, and they won by I think like 10 at the end of it. So it's one of those things that you can't be complacent. You have to play a full 4 quarters, which I know has been the theme in the locker room. So keeping up with that going into the game is going to be really important to be able to be successful here.
Now, I know Phil, he's a little superstitious, and I dig it. I don't know if that's an Italian thing or what, but I'm not a big fan of putting out final scores. I do it every week. I hate doing it. I'm not going to make Phil do it, so I'm not going to make you predict the exact score because what you've been doing has been working. That's the way superstition works. It's real, folks. But tell me how you expect this game to play out on Friday night.
So I have been checking the weather, and it does look to be not a rain game, which is a good sign.
God.
Yeah, literally, because it's been consistent besides the Florida State game. But a little bit of history too. The last time Miami's lost at home has been to Louisville. So ever since then, we've been going on a run. But I think that run's going to continue, and we're going to win and cover the spread.
I like that. And by the way, one of the more under the radar college football trophies is on the line. I know, people may or may not consider this a rivalry game, but there is a trophy, the Howard Schnellenberger boots, because Schnelly, of course, he built Miami into a national championship powerhouse, and he did so much for the Louisville program when he was there. So we got the Schnellenberger boots on the line in this one. So you say Miami is keeping the trophy in South Florida.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
I love it. Well, we always appreciate the time here from Phil Russomanno, Triple Cane, Miami MBA. You can follow him on his ridiculously named X account at psizzle22684. Eventually he's going to show up here, and his new handle is Phil Russomanno. But until then, we got psizzle22684. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate everybody for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow or later today, who knows, on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.